wasn't here before. All right, so we are going to be working on Microsoft Access. We're going to be working, the data file that I sent out was that R2G1, it was called, Reason to Go. And it's basically, oh, shoot.
Shane, you know what? You're breaking up.
I just saw that. Is it still bad?
Go ahead and talk now.
Okay, all right. So it looks like it comes in and out. Is it okay at the moment?
It's fine now.
Okay, all right. All right, so again, this was called that R2G1, Reason to Go, and it's a travel company that offers volunteer opportunities. So you pay to travel, and then you volunteer while you're there. And so we've got this one open. We're going to go ahead, whenever you open up a new database, it's going to always give you this option to enable content. And so it's just going to tell you that some content has been disabled. So we're going to have to go ahead and enable it. So let's go ahead and enable it. And then once I've got it enabled, when you're working in a database, typically it's going to automatically be updated and saved as you go. So the one thing that I like to do, especially with this database, if I make a mistake and I want to come back to it, I will typically do a file save as right away. And again, you're going to have a lot of different options. The default is best, save as a database, access database, save as. I'm just going to save it as this default. And I'm just going to say, I'm going to call it R2G May. And again, so this is just going to give us the ability to, if we make a mistake, to start over if we need to. And then again, you'll notice now that I've changed it, it wants me to enable content again, which I'm going to do. All right, and so what Access is a relational database. And so what that means is that it's going to help us. It's relating two tables or two or more tables to one another. And so you can see right over here, we've got a couple different objects. So we've got some tables, we've got some queries, some forms, and some reports as well. And so with that, when we're creating these relational databases, they're relating tables to one another so we can perform these queries, and it's from the queries that we're going to be able to create these forms and reports. So it might sound a little complicated right now, but hopefully as we get going through this, you'll see how everything kind of comes in and fits together. Right, and so one of the advantages of a relational database is that it allows you to minimize duplicate data, because a lot of times in Access, if you try to do something with a table that's related somewhere else, if you don't have matching data somewhere, it's going to say, whoa, stop. I can't do this because I don't know what you're wanting to do. And so it's going to give you these error messages along the way that when it tells you it doesn't understand something. So like, let's say I lived in Wisconsin, and I was working on a database that was basically, it had all these customers in Minnesota, and then Minnesota was the only state that I had associated to it. If I tried to enter my home address into my database, I'm going to get this message that says, wait a minute, there's no matching data for this. There's nobody you don't have Wisconsin in your database, so I can't enter this information. And so that's going to tell us, whoa, wait a minute, either I can't enter this customer, or I have to find a Minnesota address that they have to enable me to do that. So there's going to be a lot of kind of checks and balances built into the software, which is nice. And then it makes entering the data quicker, because as we build some of these tables, once we've built the base, then we can build forms, and forms are easy ways for us to kind of give out the ability for other people to enter information for us. So if you think about like signing up for either like a subscription service, if you go to Amazon, if you buy something online, if you make an online appointment at your doctor, you name it. The first time you go to that place, they're automatically going to prompt you, hey, create a new account, put your name, put your last name, put your birthday, put your address, put your phone number, put your email. I mean, they ask all this information to you and you're filling out this little form, basically. It's an online form. And what that does is it allows them to have you enter your information into their database. And so that's what those forms will allow us to do. And so once we've got these tables built and kind of related to one another, then we can create forms based on those tables. And then it makes the data entry a lot easier because we're not just going, typing in little fields. Now we've got these neat forms that make it almost, I don't want to say make it fun, but make it funner than it normally might be. And then also databases are typically a little more secure. So it's a way that you can help secure access to that information because you can apply passwords to a lot of these objects. All right, and then so again, like I said, within Access or within a database, it's kind of built upon these objects. And so you can see right over here, we've got I have all Access objects. So if for some reason we are working in forms and you aren't seeing any forms, if I say, okay, let's open up the customer roster form, and you're like, Shane, I don't have a customer roster form. I see category table, customers table. And if you look right up here, you'll notice that you're only displaying tables in your objects. If you click on this little down pointing arrow and choose all Access objects, then you'll be able to get a better picture of everything that's in this. And so so really the foundation of a database is a table. And so if we take a look at this, we've got a couple different tables in here. So if we click on one of these, the categories table, I'm going to click on that category table. And then you'll notice that when we open it, we see we've got several different categories. Right down here, you can see at the bottom, it says record 1 of 7. So we've got 7 different categories that are in our database. And so we can see those categories are adventure, cultural, eco, etc. And then within each category, we're describing what they are. So the adventure is an experience including hiking, scuba, biking, blah, blah, blah. The educational is an educational experience offering college credit. And so this tells you a little bit about how we're building this. So this is really an uninteresting table so far. Again, because it's got a category and then a description of a category. But the key here is to look right over here. You can see that we've got this plus sign. And I'll come back to that in a minute. But the plus sign indicates that we have this table related to another one based on this field. And so if we click on this, it's going to open up, this is called a subdata sheet. And the subdata sheet is going to have information that we've related to these. So I'm going to close this again for a second. I'm going to keep this table open, and I'm going to go to my customers table. So I'm going to double click on my customers table to open that one. And now you can see again, we've got a little more information. And this is the kind of stuff that we're familiar with, because it's all the information that we would have populated ourselves. We would have, other than the customer number, which is an automatically generated number, we're populating everything else, like how we heard about it, what our phone number is, what's our zip. But then again, you can also see that we've got subdata sheets over here. And so this is also indicating to us that we've got this table related somewhere else. And so if we click on one of these subdata sheets, you'll notice that we have a sales number associated with Dick Lee. If I click on Samantha Garcia, we've got 2 sales numbers. So she has 2 sales associated with her. And then within each sale, she's got this trip number associated to that sale. So now we can kind of see how this information is being built, because we've got a sales table right here, and we've also got a trips table over here. So if we look at our sales table, these are all the sales. And again, it's itemized by a sales number, the date, and then it's applied to a customer number, and then the trip number. And then again, trips, it gives us a trip number, and then all of this information about these trips. Now, the one thing that I will say right off the bat is one of the drawbacks of learning a database with all of this stuff built for you already is it's really hard for us to kind of grasp how we would use this stuff. So I noticed I still got my camera on, and if I'm looking over on this side, that's because all your pictures are over here. So I'm just looking to see if there's like confusion or something. But so it's really hard for us to kind of get an idea of how this is built. And so I always tell people that, you know, the best way to really understand databases are to think about how you could use them in your life. And like one of the examples that I always use is I'm a huge music fan. Like music, when I'm not working, which is a lot, I am listening to music. I'm usually listening to music while I'm working, and I see probably 7 or 8 concerts a month. You know, I love First Avenue. I love the Palace. So I go to a lot of music. And I listen to this radio station, the Current, if you're familiar with it. It's like a eclectic public radio station. And every year during their member drive, they do this 893 essential songs. And so right now it's 893 essential songs that make us feel good. A couple of years ago, it was the 893 essential songs for everyone. One year they did an 893 essential songs of the 2000s. And so what I will typically do, and then I'm also a cinema fan too, I love movies. What I'll do is I'll create databases, like relational databases based on this information. So I'll have a table with the 893 essential songs, like each one of them is ranked. I'll have the artist, the song name, the album it's from, the year it was released, all of this information. And so that's in one table. Then I also have another table that just has like artists. So I've just got all of the artists, and then I kind of identify a genre for that artist to kind of pair those two together. I'll create another table of just the year, and then I'll create another table for like albums, you know, with artists. And so I have all these different tables. And again, some of them are very simple, like our states table. If we open the states table, we have the state name and an abbreviation, and that's it. It's a really boring table, but you can see with the subdata sheet, oopsie, cancel. With the subdata sheet for these tables, why isn't it opening this for me? Huh, all right. Oh, that's because I'm on the wrong one, right? So with those subdata sheets, it brings us all the things that are related to that specific state. So we can see all the trips that are within a given state. We can see all the sales that are within a given state. And so the way I always tell people to think about a database is how you could use it in your normal life. And it could be just that, you know, maybe you're very involved with like your church or a school or something. You could have like a mailing, like a list of all of your contacts. And then within those contacts, they might be different religions. And so you could create a different table that just says like Hindi, Buddhist, Christian, Jewish, is Muslim. You could have a different table that identifies just religions. And then you could run a report that says, I just want to look at all of my friends that celebrate Ramadan. And then so you could just filter all of your contact lists by your friends that are Muslim. And then it's going to give you this contact list that you can like send them a card, like generate a mailing list. I mean, so there's lots. So I always tell people to think about how you could use a database in your like actual everyday life. And when we start to look at this a little bit more, you might get a few more ideas. But when we're looking at the database to start, we've got all of these tables, we've got all of these queries, all of these forms, all of these reports. I mean, this is like information overload for somebody who's not familiar with databases, because there's so much stuff going on here. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm way more confused now than I was to start. And so again, we're just opening up these different tables so we can kind of see the information that's contained in them. And again, we've got and some of them have related information. So we've got a subdata sheet here, subdata sheets here. Over here with our sales, we don't have a subdata sheet. And again, because there can only be one sale, right? We can't have one sale associated to more than one customer. It can't be associated to more than one trip. It can't be associated to more than one state. So this is going to be kind of one of the essential building blocks of this table, because this one table, it can only be related to other things. It can't have other things built upon it. And so we look at the trips. The trip has a subdata sheet, and the states has a subdata sheet. It's only that sales that is kind of this lone gunman, if you will. All right, and then so the queries, if we look at customer sales, you can see we've got a customer table, and we've got a sales table. If we look at our customer sales query, I'm going to open that one, you can see we've got all of this information from our customers table, but at the end, we have all of that trip information as well. So that's sales. We've got our sales number, we've got the trip number, we've got the date. And so we're kind of bringing these two tables together. And then when we do that, after we've got this query built, we can kind of create a form that we can have other people populate it. And so if Brenda was gonna take a trip on an eco tour or whatever, she could fill out a form, and then she might fill out all of her contact information and the trip that she's interested in, and it's going to affect a couple different tables because we've got them related to one another. And so I'm going to close this for a second, but then also one of the ways that we can get a better idea kind of how everything is built together is we're going to look at like our relationship report. And so you can see we've got these 5 different tables. I'm going to go over to my database tools tab. And then in my database tools tab, I have this little thing called a relationship. And so if I click on that to open that one, now you can see here's how this table is kind of related. So we've got our sales table right over here. We've got a states table. We've got a customers table. And so these are kind of the base ones. If you look over at our customers table, within the customers table, we have it being related to our sales table. And you can see in our customers table, we have a customer number. And then over in our sales table, we also have a customer number field. And that's how those two are kind of joined together. So we've got one customer will be associated to a different sale. And then again, you can see this is a one-to-many relationship. So for every customer, we could have many sales, but for each sale, there can only be one customer. And again, I know it's a little confusing to start, but as we start to work into this a little bit more, hopefully things will get a little clearer, a little clearer than mud right now. And so this is just this kind of relationship report. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to these tabs up here. I'm going to right click on my relationship tab, and I'm going to say close all. Now I'm going to get this option. Do you want to save this layout? And all it wants to know is, hey, you move these fields away from each other a little bit. Do you want to save that? You can save it. You can not save it. It doesn't make a difference. I'm going to say no for now. All right. And so that's kind of how, again, the tables are like the basic foundation of how this database is built. And then all of this other stuff is built upon those tables and how they relate to one another. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to open this trips table again. So you can see in my trips table, I've got a couple of these different options, and I'm going to make sure that and see the one bad thing about Access is if you make a change in one of these databases, if you're not working in a saved version of it, you're gonna change it forever. Then you're not gonna be able to get it back. All right, and then again, I'm gonna open up my customers table as well. So I've got 2 tables open, just my trips and the customers right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and also open up this trip sales query. And again, so this is a query. I'm gonna open up the trip sales query. And so you can see I've got this American Heritage Tour kind of features at the very top of it. And again, it's at the beginning for me because all these tours are listed alphabetically. And so this is one of these trip sales. If I come over to my trips table, what number is it? It is right here. So trip number 36 is my American Heritage Tour trip. I'm going to come back over to this trip sales. And then over here, I'm going to change it from the American Heritage Tour to the American Legacy Tour. So I'm just going to click one instance of the word heritage. So I'm just going to double click on it. And I'm just going to change heritage to legacy. And then I'm just going to click away from this row to kind of set that entry. And then you'll notice that when I changed it one time, it changed it everywhere. Because again, we've only got one occurrence of this tour, but there's several people that are interested in it. So it knows that if I change the name once, I'm going to have to change it in all of them. But so then if I go over to this trips table, so right now it was number 36, and you can see it was American Heritage Tour, and it also changed it here. So it's changed the American Legacy Tour in this place as well. And so now I can go ahead and open up that customer roster form. Again, so now we've got a table open, we've got a query open, and now we've got this form open, this customer roster form. Come on. There we go. All right. And so I can see I was selected. I'm in my American Legacy Tour. Again, it used to be Heritage, now it's Legacy. And so I'm just going to come over here and double click on the word tour and change it to project. All right. And then I'm going to click away from this, come back to it for a second. All right. So I've got that one selected. And now if I come back over to my trips, get away from that one. So now you can see it changed it in my trips table. And then it also changed it in my trip sales form, or the trip sales query. And so again, when we change it in one spot, since we've got all of these tables related to one another, the program recognizes that, okay, if we change it in one spot, it has to be changed everywhere. And so that, again, this is one of those things that we're talking about. It helps minimize our redundancies, because we're not going to have the American Legacy Project in one spot, the American Heritage Tour in one, and then the American Legacy Tour in another one. It's going to keep everything consistent. So where we change it one time, it's going to change it in every place that it occurs in this database. It's going to make sure it changes it for us. And again, that's one of the beautiful things about relating these tables and relating these tables to one another, is that it's kind of this fail-safe for us. It won't, unless you misspell the word tour or project or legacy or something, you're going to be okay. It's going to change everything for you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to right-click here, and I'm going to close all of these for a second. And then again, the nice thing with Access is if you need to, if something isn't going to save automatically, it's going to prompt you by saying, hey, you need to save these changes if you want to keep them. But normally, like, you'll notice that we didn't click save after we made any of those changes. It automatically just applied everywhere. So we didn't have to worry about that. All right, so now let's go ahead and I'm gonna close this one for a minute. So I'm gonna go ahead and say File, Close. And then so I've got no database open. And so you can do it this way. You can do File, New Database, and we're gonna create a blank database, or you can start from shutting down completely. And then when you shut down completely, let me close that one. When you shut down completely, I'm going to open up this one, and then, or otherwise you can say new database right here as well, a blank database, because we're going to create our first blank database. So I'm going to go ahead and say my blank database. It says, all right, what do you want to call this? I'm going to call this one R2G, and then it's going to ask me where I want to save it. So I can either just create right now, it says it's going to save it in Shane Mueller in my user file, Shane Mueller documents. I can say, yep, I want to save it there. If you want to save it in a specific location, you can choose that browse option and say, I want to save it to my flash drive and my access file. Come on, where's my access file? And then access module 1. I'm going to go ahead and save it here. Come on, there we go. All right, so now it says I've got it saved in my access file or access folder, access module 1 subfolder. I'm gonna go ahead and say create. And take a second. All right, so now we've got this kind of blank slate. So you can see, again, tables are the foundational building blocks of a database. And so right away, the first thing it says is, okay, we need to create a table. So what kind of table do we want to do? And so there's a couple different ways that we can do this. When it automatically opens, this is going to be our data sheet view. So this is called our data sheet view. And this is going to be like where all of our information will kind of be displayed row by row. We want to create this in a different view. So we're going to change the view of this. So I'm going to come right up here. And so right now, again, we're in our data sheet view. I'm going to change to my design view. And I think the design view is a lot easier to kind of build your database in a design view, because it allows you to kind of look at which fields you're creating. And so I'm going to go ahead and choose that, and I'm going to call this table customers. All right, so I'm just going to give just the name customers. I'm going to say okay. And then now when I do that, it brings me to this design option. And so right now you can see I've got a field name column here, a data type column, and then a description column. And again, this is optional. We need to have at least 2 of these things to kind of relate to one another. And so now we can go ahead and we can choose what we want to do. So this first one, I'm going to call this ID field, and you'll notice that right over here, it kind of looks like this little key. And what's this called? It's called a primary key. And the primary key is a way for us to relate those tables to one another, like we talked about. And so when you're making a relational database, you just have to make sure you have at least one primary key to relate things to. Otherwise, it's going to be a little wonky and it won't let you do it. And so we've got this field. It's automatically going to come up as ID, and then the data type is an auto number. And when you look at the auto number, think of something like a social security number or like a medical ID number. It's going to be a number that is only used one time in a specific table. And once it's used, it can't be used again. And so if we if we had a database with 27 records and we were looking at customers for our, Mary Kay or something, and we decided like, oh, Brenda's no longer a customer with us and she was customer number 7, we're going to delete customer 7 out of our database, and we'll still have customer number 27 and 26 and 25 and 17 and 8 and 6, but we no longer have a customer 7, nor can we ever get customer 7 back. Customer 7 is just gone. And so it's kind of the same principle behind a social security number. You want everyone to have one, but once you use it, you don't want anyone else to be able to use that after that. And so that's what this auto number is going to do. It's going to automatically assign a number of this, a random number in sequence, but then once we use it, it won't allow us to use that number ever again. And so the first field that we're going to create, we don't want to call it just an ID. We're going to call it cust ID. All right, and that's going to be a auto number field. So I'm just going to tab and then tab again. I don't need to put anything in this description, and then tab one more time, and I'm down to this next field name. And so now I can choose what my next field name is. And so the next one I'm going to say is going to be first name. So I'm going to type first name. And again, when I'm building a database, I don't use spaces, just because that's the naming convention I use when I'm naming an object, and also when I name fields. Because when you start working with these and you create calculated fields a little bit later on, we're going to do this in lesson 3 and lesson 4. When we start to create these calculated fields, that's when you're going to have to start entering your field names appropriately. And if sometimes you use spaces and sometimes you don't, and sometimes you use underscores, it can get confusing on how you, like what naming convention you're using. So I would just say either use no spacing or use an underscore. If you use an underscore, if you like to have that little space between it. But just be consistent in whatever you're using. Okay, so I've got that first name field. Now I'm just going to hit my down arrow because that's another way that I can navigate through this as I'm building it. And then my next field is going to be last name. And again, I'm just going to do it the same way. Both words are capitalized, but there's no space in between them. I'm going to go down again. I'm going to choose phone. And again, you can see the default data type is a short text field, which is totally fine for most things. And then I'm going to go down one more time and select birthday. All right. And then I'm just going to arrow over a couple times. Okay, so now I can see that we've got these basic fields entered. The customer ID is going to be this automatically generated number. Perfect. That's our primary key here. Then our first name and last name are short text fields, which are fine because if I'm going to click right here in this short text, and then you'll notice that if I look down here into my properties area, this is going to be how we can identify if we need to specifically format the way a number appears or something. This is where we can do that. But right now you can see the field size for short text is 255 characters. I don't know about anyone else, but I've never met anyone that has a 255 character first name or last name. So I think we're okay doing that. But we could also say, you know what, I want to limit this field. You know, first names, I've got a short text field. I'm going to say, you know what, 255 is a lot. I'm going to say I want to limit it to 25 characters. And then the same thing, I'm going to go to my last name field, and then I'm going to do this same thing come on. And then I'm going to say 25 characters for the last name as well. And then the next field down, I'm just going to kind of arrow down to the next one. And then now I've got my phone number. And so with this phone number, it's a short text, and I can keep it at short text. But there's also, if we look at this format option, we know that people's phone numbers are only a certain number, especially if we're focusing on the United States. Then we've got 334. We know that the maximum it can be is 10 digits. So I can say, I want the field size to be 10. So instead of having 255 characters, I can limit it to 10 characters only. And then if I want to apply a certain formatting to that, this input mask right here, the input mask is a way to have data appear within a cell or a field. And then right over at this far right, you've got these 3 little dots. I'm going to save my table. All right. And so then you can see now I've got this input mask wizard that pops up, and you can see I've got several different ways that I can have this number appear. It can appear as a phone number, as a social security, as a zip code. I mean, there's lots of different ways. I'm going to say, yep, I want that phone number. I'm going to say next. And then that's the input mask. I want it to have the open parentheses, 3-digit area code, close the parentheses, a space, and then 3 digits hyphen 4 digits. And again, so I'm creating how I want that to appear. And then right now here it says the placeholder text characters. I can have it be an underscore, a pound sign, all these different characters I can have. I'm just going to say, yep, underscore. And then I'm going to say finish. And then so right here you can see that my input mask for that field, it's going to be 10 characters long, and it gives me that formatting. And then birthday, I'm going to come down to my birthday. And then again, I can do the same thing. Right now it's coming in as a short text field, but obviously a birthday is going to be a date. So I'm going to do the same thing. Instead of having it short text, I'm just going to come down here and say, I want to use a date and time field. So I'm going to say date and time. And then like we did before, if we want it to appear a certain way, we can choose how we want that to appear. So again, I'm just coming down to format, and I'm going to say, I want it to appear as like a medium date. 2 digits hyphen 3-digit, like 3-character abbreviation a month, and then the 2-digit year. And that's how I want my stuff to format. And so I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to right click on my customers, on my customer tab, and then I'm going to say data sheet view. Now, when I do that, it's going to say you must save this first. Yep, go ahead and save it. And then now I've got my data sheet entry. And so this is where I can enter information. So I'm just going to enter. So if you've got it open, go ahead and enter it. I'm just going to enter this first record is just going to be my name. And then I'm going to tab to the next field. And then tab to the next field. And so my phone. So I can just enter my, and again, since I've entered this input mask already, it's automatically formatting the number how I want it. And if somebody entered the parentheses, starts typing, when they run out of characters, when they run out of 10 characters, they'll notice, oh, hey, I'm supposed to enter just the characters alone. Then they can go back and re-enter that information. But again, this is a way that you can you can dictate how people can enter information as well. And then birthday. And then I'm going to tab, and then it brings me down to my next record. All right, and again, so this is just, so we've entered one record into our first little table. Any questions about it so far? Because now we're going to enter a couple more. Nothing? Good so far? All right. Okay, so now again, we're going to enter 2 more names, and again, they can be anything you want. I'm going to use my brother. I use his middle name as his last name, since otherwise I'm just going to have a bunch of Muellers in there. And then again, I'm just tabbing between fields. And yes, it was his birthday yesterday. And then again, you'll notice that customer ID, it's automatically says new. If I'm over here, I can't do anything, and I'm not sharing my computer audio, but if I was, you'd be hearing, it's giving me this little ding, 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 ding. Every time I try to enter something, it's giving me this alarm like, hey, you can't do this, guy. It's a blocked field. So I'm just going to come back over to this one. And I'm just entering some generic information. Where did I go? Oh. All right, so I've got a couple records entered so far. I'm going to go ahead and I am going to close this one for a second. So I'm going to go ahead and right click and close. And again, I didn't have to save anything because it automatically saves it for me. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new table. And again, if you're going to only create one table in a database, it's silly to use a database. I mean, it might be just as easy to use Excel, because when you're not relating it to anything else, you're kind of only creating a table anyway. And a table is just as easy to do in Excel. It's just as easy to filter. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you can do with just a table that is just as easy to do in Excel as it is in Access. Access is just much more powerful when you're bringing tables together. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say create. So I'm going to go to my create tab, and then I'm going to go to my table design option. And again, it's going to open it right in my table design mode. And so again, I'm just going to create a couple more fields here. So I'm going to do this is going to be my comment table. So I'm going to do comment ID. And again, I'm using that same naming convention. My no spaces in between. Every new thing is capitalized. I'm going to go ahead and hit tab. Now again, I want the customer ID, I want it to be unique. I only want one person to have it. So I'm going to say I want an auto number for this. So I can just come down here and say auto number. And then I'm going to tab over. And then I'm going to do a comment text. And then tab. And this one I want to do a long field. So I may need more than 255 characters. So I'm going to go ahead and say long text. And then you'll notice long text, there's no limitation to it. Then the next one I'm going to do is my comment date. And again, this one is going to be a date and time. And then finally, I'm going to do cust ID. And again, this is going to be a way for us to link these two tables together because our customers each have an ID. And we want to have these two tables to link to one another. So I'm going to do my cust ID and then tab over once. Now here's where you have to think about how you're building these relationships between the databases, is because in the customer table, the customer ID is an auto number field. And so here, in order for us to relate them together, the fields have to match. And so I could have a long text and a short text match together, but I can't have a short text and a number or a short text and an auto number linked to one another. So I have to say, I've already got an auto number. I can't have another one. I'm going to say number. And this way, it's going to allow me to link my customer ID as a number to that other field, to that customer ID field in that customer's table. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to right click and then change this to data sheet view. Again, it's going to say I must save it. Yep. I'm going to call this one comments. So this is going to be my comments table. And now you'll see there's no primary key defined. Do you want to do it? I don't want to do it right now. I can, it's best to do it right now, but you don't have to do it right away. You can go back and assign it. And that's the way I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to decide how I want to use my primary key later. So I'm going to go ahead and say no. And then you'll notice if I have my customers table open and I'm looking at it in my design view, there's that customer ID is that primary key. If I look at my comments table and I look at it in my design view, there's no primary key over here. All right, so I'm going to come back and change this to data sheet view because now I want to enter some data. And so I've got my comment ID and I'm going to go click right over here again because I can't enter any information. It's an automatically generated field. So this first comment text that I'm going to enter is wants to help with the Rose Bowl parade. All right, so wants to help with the Rose Bowl parade. I'm going to tab over. The comment date is 1/17/20, and then tab over. And again, it automatically applies the date formatting that we've chosen. In this case, we didn't change it to that medium date. We're still using the short date. And then the customer ID, I'm going to hit 1. Now, right now, we don't have these databases related to one another, but if they were related and I said, inadvertently I typed in 11 for the customer number, it immediately would give me an error message saying, wait a minute, you've got this database related somewhere else. You don't have a customer number 11 in that other database. So something's not jiving. And so again, it's a way to safeguard us from doing something stupid, which I'm prone to do. So I'm going to go ahead and say that first one, I've got that record in there. I'm just going to come between, kind of like we did in Excel, I'm going to come between these field labels, these field column headings, and I'm just going to double click so we can maximize the space that we're working with here. So I want to make this a little bit wider so I can see all the text that I'm entering. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I've got one record in here. I'm going to go ahead and close this one. And again, this time I just used a little X as opposed to right-clicking and closing. I want to make this changes to this. Yep, I'm going to save my changes. All right, and so now we've got these two tables together. And so now we're going to start to build this first relationship. And so I'm going to open that comments table again. And then now this time, I do want to assign my primary key. I didn't before, but now I do want to. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come up to my design view. And then I'm going to hover, I'm going to make sure I've got this comment ID field selected. So I'm just going to come out here, select it. And then right up here in our Table Tools Design tab, Tools group, there's this little option that just looks like a little key. It says primary key. I'm going to go ahead and click it. And so now you'll see that I've assigned the primary key to my comment ID field, which is that auto number field. And again, is it just as easy to do it when we built it? Yeah, but you'll see that it's not that difficult to do it after the fact as well. All right, so we've got that done. So we've got them that key assigned. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close this. Do you want to save this change? Yep, I want to save it. All right. And so now I have these two tables built. They've each got a primary key associated with them. So now I can relate them to one another. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over. So again, I've got and to do this, you have to have all the objects that you're using to build this relationship. All of them have to be closed. So if I had my customer's table open right now, I couldn't do this. I would get an error message that says, hey, you can't do this. You've got one of these objects is already in use. And again, it's just another way for the program to kind of safeguard us from doing something that might mess us up later. Because if we've got one of those tables open and we're entering information while we're trying to relate it, there could be an error and like a miscommunication on how it's working. So I'm just going to come over to this external data, or sorry, this database tools, and then relationships. And so you can see when we did this relationship thing before, it brought up a bunch of stuff over here. Right now, we haven't declared a relationship yet. So we're going to have to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just double click on my comments table. Brings it over here onto my desktop. And then I'm going to double click customers. And then I'm going to close this. All right, so
Can you redo that, Sean, please, or Shane, please?
Yep. Again,
thank you.
Yep. So again, with my, I'm going to open up my tables again. So from here, Tracy, or?
You know, actually, no, yeah, because can we start to get all this again?
Okay, yep. I'm going to close this. I'm going to close this. I don't want to save the changes to this. Oh, I saved them. Okay, so again, I'm going to go to, I've got these databases closed. I'm going to go to my database tools and then click on relationships. And then I'll pretend like these aren't here. And then my table, so then automatically this table, these show tables will appear for us. When we create this, when we open that relationship builder, I'm just going to double click. Oh.
Gene, it doesn't come up, it doesn't come up on mine. I have I'm in the relationships.
Yeah.
And then I have, then it said add tables and all that, but I have exactly what you have, except I do not have that box showing with the blue. So where did you get that from?
That is right where it says add table.
Oh, okay. So hit that.
Yep.
Okay, mine doesn't look like yours, but that's okay.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. You again, so you can either double click on it to add it, or you can single click add. Either way will work. But once I've got those tables in here on my workspace, I can close it because these are the two that I want to work with. And now I want to relate these tables to one another. And again, you can see I've got a customer ID field over here. I've got a customer ID field over here. So that's the logical way that they're going to kind of link together. So what I'm going to do is I want each customer to be able to give more than one comment, but I don't want comments to be able to apply to more than one customer. I can't say the comment like, this trip sucked. and then just say, okay, Brenda, Tracy, Becky, and Shane all said this trip sucked. If I want to do that, I'm going to have to go to each person and say, you know, comment 1, Becky said this trip sucked. Comment 2, Brenda said this trip sucked. Comment 3, you know, etc. And so I want to make sure that I'm relating these tables, that I want the customer side to be my primary, and then each customer can make more than one comment if they need to. So I'm going to select the customer ID on my customers table first. So again, I'm just going to hover over it, left click, and then as I move this over and I get it over here, you can see it right now. It's saying you can't do anything right here. But when I bring it over here, now it wants to know how I want to relate these tables to one another. And so you can see, I'm going to come down here a little bit. So you can see right down at the bottom, I've got my arrow, that selection pointer arrow. And then I've also got, like, it's a little box with a plus. And so it's telling me that I need to add a relationship. So I'm just going to come to cust ID, point at it, and then release. And now it's going to bring up this relationship box. So it's going to say, okay, this is what I think you said. You want to relate the customer ID field from the customers table to the customer ID field from the comments table. I'm like, yep, that's what I want to do. But now here's where you need to make sure that you're doing it right. This is how we're going to be able to build those sub data sheets to make, when we make changes in one spot, it's going to affect everything else. I'm going to say I want to enforce referential integrity, because by doing that, we're creating that one-to-many. So we're allowing each customer to make more than one comment, but we're not making comments applicable to more than one customer at a time. Again, so I've got my customer. The first one is the cust ID in the customers table. The second one is that cust ID in the comments table. I'm going to enforce integrity, and then I'm going to say create. And then when I do that, you can see my customer ID, the primary key for my customers table, is the one side of this one-to-many relationship with this other table. And so now these two tables are linked together. So anything that I do to my comments table will affect how my customer table is. So I'm going to say, go ahead and say, okay, close this. Do I want to save the changes? Yes, I do. I want to save that change.
Shane?
Yep.
Sorry, because I have I wrote cust ID and then I wrote cus ID. That's why mine are not syncing, correct?
Yes.
Because I didn't spell them right or
right.
the same way. So
yep.
Do I go back to like?
I would go back to that table. So whatever one that says cus ID.
Yep.
Which one is that?
It says customers on it.
The customers?
Okay, so yeah.
So go back to customers, open that one up again, and then go to your view and open in design view, and then just change the field name.
View, design view. Oh, okay. Wait a minute. No. View, data, sheet view. No, design view.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So then I put the T in there. That's okay.
And then close it. And if it
then
says
close
save it, save it.
Save it. Yep.
And then
Perfect.
go back to your database tools, and then you can do that relationship again.
So now so will you, I'm sorry, walk me through it one more time. So go,
yep,
I'm on the customer.
Yep, so close it, because you can't have it open when you're trying to relate it. So there should be, so right now you should have nothing open right here.
Got it.
Okay, then go back to your database tools.
Database tools, yep.
And then relationships.
Relationships.
And then you still should have those in there, right?
Yep, both come up.
And then just click on custom ID in the customers table, click and hold and drag it over and drop it on cust ID over here.
Got it. Woohoo!
Right. And then did you enforce referential integrity?
Then I'm going to enforce it. Then I create it, correct?
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. All right. So then now I'm going to close it, because now I want to work with it a little bit. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up my customers table. So when I open up my customers table, oops, see, that was my comments table. Sorry, I'm going to close my comments table again. I'm going to open up my customers table. And now you see, when I open up my customers table, now I have these little plus signs over here. So those are my sub data sheets. So I'm just going to open each one of these. So you can see when I opened up number 1, it says wants to help with the Rose Bowl parade. And the comment was made on 1/17. The comment ID is 1. And you'll notice it doesn't say, I don't have that field over here that says cust ID because it's already associated to this customer. And so I don't have to, it's eliminating that redundancy. So I don't have it showing up in more than one spot. But so now when I've got these other ones open, I can make a change to, let's say I want to make a comment from person number 2. So from my brother. Again, I can't click over here because it's an automatically generated number. But so you can see I've got 1 and then new and then new and then new. If I click down under customer number 2, and then I enter this a new item for this person. And so in this case, I'm going to do, what am I entering? Do anything. We'll say junior at UMD. And then the comment date was 2/15/20. All right, and again, but you'll notice also that I've got this little calendar that opens up over here. That's called a date picker. If we clicked on the date picker, we could choose a date. Now, this is good when you are working with dates that are close, but like if I was working with my birthday, and my birthday, as you saw, was November 1st of 1970, if I were to do that, I would be clicking this like 100 and some times, going back to November, back 50 years, I mean, just over and over and over again. So it's easier just to type that in. But if it's something recent, it's just as easy to click back a month and choose that day. I mean, just as simple that way. All right, so I've got person number, I got 1 comment there, and I'm also going to choose a comment down here. Again, loves to help rescue dogs or something. All right, and then the comment date, again, I don't have to assign the customer because I'm already assigning it right to the customer. And then we'll say, I'm gonna use my date picker for this. I'll say May 10th because she made the comment on Mother's Day. All right. And then again, you'll notice that as I populate these, it automatically generates a number, the next number in the sequence. So if I come back up to customer number 1 and say, and again, you don't have to copy the same comments that I'm making. You can make up your own. Wants to take a baseball tour. And then we'll say again, I'm gonna use my date picker just back 3/17. Again, so now you'll notice that it's comment number 4 because it goes in, it recognizes that it wants me to go in order. All right, so I've got that. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to open up my comment table. Oops. Let me go back to my customers table for a second. Come on. I have to enter that, get out of that field. All right, now let's try it. Close it and then reopen it. All right, there we go. So when I come back to my comments table, you'll notice that when I made the changes over here, I entered them into my data sheet view of my customers table. Since I've got those databases related to one another, it's automatically entering them into my comments table. And again, it's applying the customer ID because it recognizes which customer said it, which made that comment. And then it applies that appropriate date. And again, so this is one of those ways that when we relate these databases to one another, it allows us to, to enter the information one place and it will automatically affect the other one. Now, if I were to enter a new customer, so I'm going to close my comments table for a second. And I'm going to come down here to and again, I'm in my data sheet view. I'm going to click down at the very bottom, new, not the comment new, the new customer. And I'm going to tab and I'm going to give a new person's name. So I'm going to say, so Liam Richard 612 6, 7, 8, 9, 1. And then tap, and again, it's automatically formatting those numbers, how we applied that formatting. And then we'll say 7, 8, 2000. And then I'm going to say right under that, yep, so tab. And then I'm going to open that subdata sheet and right away apply, because this person just filled out a comment card. They weren't in our database yet, but they gave us a comment. So we're entering that person in, and we're also going to enter their comment. So their comment was, I love with endangered animals. So I love working with endangered animals. The comment date was just yesterday. All right. And then again, all right, so we got that one. And then now if I come back over to my comments, let me close that one out to save it. And then come back to comments. And then now you'll see that we've got, I love working with endangered animals, the comment date, and then now we've got that customer ID. We didn't have a customer for before, but it's pulling it from that customers table because we've related those two to one another. And again, it's just a way to make that data entry very simple. So again, we didn't have to go to both of these tables. We entered all of the information right from that customers table, and it automatically populated the comments table for us. All right, any questions about that so far? No, good. And then, so is anybody else like actually getting to work with this on the computer, or are you just taking notes?
I'm working on it.
Yep.
But I do have a question, Shane.
Okay.
Like I put the fourth person in, and how come I didn't get it to go over to the comment side? I don't know
click the little plus.
Oh,
so
okay.
Right below their name, there should be like a little plus sign.
Thank you.
Right next, yeah.
Yep, got it.
Okay. All right. All right, so let's take, so if you've got that, I want to take a look at that other file that I sent out, that basketball one. And again, so that's just very basic, a very basic understanding of like how a database works. And again, it's a very simplistic way. And hopefully, like going through this, you've got, you have a couple ideas like how you might use it. Again, the hardest thing about like understanding Access and other database programs is when we're learning how to use them, we're not necessarily learning how to build them. And I think learning how to build them is one of the crucial elements, because if you don't know how to build a database, I don't want to say you're not any good, you're not going to be of value to anyone, but it's, you could do data entry, but you're not gonna have a better understanding of how to build those databases if all you know is, how to enter the data. And so hopefully as we go through this a little bit more, you're gonna become more and more comfortable with this. And again, if there are any questions, by all means, like go ahead and ask questions, because I feel like I'm going through this quickly because there's not a lot of questions so far. So hopefully, if you're not understanding it, you're not allowing me to just jump past it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I am going to close this one, and then I'm going to open that one, the basketball, the other one that I sent out. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and file, close. And then you could have closed the whole application all the way out if you wanted to. But again, since I know I want to open another one right away, I'm just going to go File, Open. And then I'm going to browse for that location. And I know it's in my flash drive. It's in my Access file, and it's in Access Module 1. It's called basketball. So I'm going to select that basketball table. And then again, right away, it wants to know if I want to enable the content so I can edit it. I'm going to go ahead and say, yep, enable it. But then again, I want to also make sure that I'm saving it, like giving it a new name, so I'm able to return back to it if I need to. So I'm just going to file, save, or save as, excuse me. And then again, I'm going to keep the defaults because I just want to save it as a database. And then I'm going to call it, Basketball May. Enter. All right, so got it open. And again, it just lets us know that some of this content's disabled. Or you want to open it? Yep, I want to enable that content. All right, and so the way that these chapters work as we're going through them, or the lessons work, and let me open it up a little bit, is, and you can see this, my classroom screen, right? Hopefully like a nod or something. Okay, good. All right. So the way this is kind of laid out is we've got this lesson project, and this is the thing that we typically will kind of go through together to learn those key elements of this module, this lesson. And so I'm going to be kind of walking you through step by step. Then after that, there's a skills review. And so what the skills review is, it's like you can kind of download that sheet, and I don't think it'll give me the preview, or will it? Oh yeah, it does give me the preview. So I can see the skills review. And so with this skills review, it just is kind of a way to walk through the lesson that we've just done together. And it takes you through it in a more condensed way, but a way that hopefully you're familiar with because we've just kind of done it together. And so that skills review is going to walk you through every one of those concepts that we've done over again to kind of reinforce it. And then after that, whoopsie, sorry. And then after that, we've got a couple challenge projects. We've got a challenge 1, a challenge 2, challenge 3, and a challenge 4. Each one of these challenge projects is going to work on a specific skill. So let's say one of the things that we wanted to make sure you understand was how to build a database, or how to build a table. This first one is going to talk about just building a table. The second one is going to be about relating tables. The third one might be about, understanding, like building a query from a table or something. I mean, each one of these challenges is going to focus on one of those key skills that we worked on throughout that unit. And then the last project, and that's the one that we're going to look at right now, this visual workshop, it's going to give you a picture. And so I'm going to go ahead and open this one. And so all it's going to do, it's going to give you this picture, and it's going to give you a little scenario. And then you're going to have to use the skills that you've learned throughout this lesson to kind of create this. And so we can see that basically what it wants us to do is to develop this relationship between these three things. And you can see it says, modify any of the records that contain your first name and last name, move them to a different record, observing the power of the relational database. So it's asking us to make a little modifications here and there. And then when we're done, look at how these things are related to one another and make sure we understand that. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get back out of there. And again, so then each unit is kind of built like that. So everyone is going to have this primary project that we do together, and that's the one that I'll kind of lead you through as we go. And then a skills review, which is a way for you to kind of reinforce those skills. And again, if you click on that skills review, it's going to have only the pages of this this whole full lesson that pertain to the skills review. So if you like to be able to see things in front of you, don't print out this thing and then print this whole 30-page thing, and then print out this one because it's going to be 20 pages of the same stuff, and then print out this one because all of these PDFs are based on this main PDF. So if it's better for you to print something out, I would say probably print out this first one and then don't do any of the other things. But again, it's all skills based, and so it's going to focus on these specific skills until we finally get to that visual workshop, which is just going to give you a picture with very limited information about how to build it. But hopefully by taking a look at it, you can see, okay, I see that you added another table, you created a primary key, and then related that with a one-to-many relationship to this other table, this new table. And so that's what we're looking at with that. And so each one of these, the files, this is like binary file or document file or spreadsheet file, all of these files are going to be included that you'll need. Now, if it doesn't have a file with it, it just means that you're creating something on your own. And again, every lesson that we go through is built that same way. You'll notice if we come at like lesson 2 when we're doing queries, we've got our project, a skills review, 4 challenges, and then a visual workshop. And again, if you're taking more than one of these workshops with me right now, you'll notice that every lesson that we do is built the same way. It's got the lesson, the review, the challenges, and then that visual element that you're going to create using those skills. So I'm just going to tell you, like, if you look at this, if we open this one up, it's, this is an assignment. It's built as an assignment, and I only have it as an assignment. So if you're not understanding one of those elements that we're talking about, you can go ahead and do the work and then upload it to the classroom, and then I can take a look at it. So that's just kind of an indication that, okay, I'm not absolutely 100% sure that I'm doing this right. Can you take a look at this one for me? And then that way I can take a look at it to let you know. But I'm not going to say, all right, each one of these projects, we do this one lesson together, then you've got 7 assignments that you need to turn in to me. I'm not going to say that, because if you get something, I don't want this to be like extra work for you. I want this to be something to introduce you to the software so you can kind of have an understanding of it. But if you understand tables, then don't do all these things on tables, because it's just a bunch of redundant stuff that you're like, okay, this is a boring class. I don't want to do this at all. And so only do these assignments if you feel like you need reinforcement. Don't just do them because you don't have anything better to do, because then I have to look at them, and I've got stuff to do too. So, but again, I totally don't mind looking at them if you are not sure of what you're doing. I mean, that's what I'm here for. But again, I don't want to create busy work for you, because if I create busy work for you, then I'm creating busy work for me too. So I will never do that. I will never make you turn in something to say you need to do this or else. All right. So we've got, again, all right, a little rant there for me. All right, so we've got this basketball one open. And again, we can see we've got 3 tables here. We've got a games table. And again, so I can see each game is game number, opponent, all right, the score, the website for the score and everything, what day the game was, if it was a home or away. We've got players, and so these are all the players on the team. And then stats, and these are each player, so we can see stat number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all through number 60. And then we've got our player number, the game number, and then all of their points stuff. And so we can see that player number 5 is all right here, player number 12. So this is kind of organized by player number in an ascending order, because it's getting larger as it goes. All right, so we can kind of see how this table is created. All right, and again, so this one says, modify any of the Matthew Douglas records so it contains your first name and last name. So I'm going to go to this players, and I'm going to go ahead and change Matthew Douglas's name to my name. And you can change it to your name. You don't have to do my name. All right, so I got Matt. I'm going to say, yeah, I am not. Oh, I'm close to, I'm 68 inches, I think, 69, 68. All right, I'm not from Linden, Iowa, though. All right, again, so if I go ahead and click out of that one, go back to my stats sheet. All right, so I'm only, Matthew's only, in the other ones, he's only a number, a player number. So in this case, he's player number 20, player number 5. And so player number 5 is going to be us, later on. And there's our games. Okay. And so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at this offensive query. And so we can see that on our offensive query, Matthew's name has been changed to our name now. With all, and again, there's our opponent. So we can see this query has been built upon the players table because that's where this first name, last name stuff came from. It's also on the games table because that's where this opponent came from, as well as the stats table because the 3-pointers, field goals, and free throws all came from that stat. So we can see that this one query is pulling information from each one of these different tables. And so if we take a look at it, I'm going to go ahead and go to my database tools and then open that relationship. Oh, where is it? Ah, all right. So are we going to build this one? Yeah, we're going to build it. Okay, cool. All right, so let's go ahead and build this. So I'm going to go ahead and bring out all these tables. I am going to close. Yep, got them all out. I'm going to go ahead and close the offense stats. So close all of my tables and that other query. So I only have my relationships open again, because if we try to modify any of this when we have those tables open, it's not going to allow us to do it.
Okay, so Shane,
Yep.
so I only have the offense on, so I have to get rid of all of my queries or all of my.
Yep, you can do right click and say close all, and it will close everything.
Okay, so then I go to my database
Tool, yep.
relationships, but only offense comes up. So what am I doing wrong?
Offense shouldn't be in something that's available to you because offense isn't the table.
Okay, so I'm in my game. Okay, so now.
So I'll close this for a second. I don't want to see my changes.
Yep.
So again, everything is closed.
Got it.
I went to my database tools.
Yep.
And then relationships, and there should be nothing here.
My offense things came up. So what did I screwed up?
Okay, so then just turn it yellow. So click on it to turn it yellow. It will be like a yellow border, and then click delete. Hit your delete key.
Wait a minute. So, nope. Show direction. Crap. Okay, why? I don't know. So I got first player, last name, throws, whatever.
Or what else you can do? You can just, even if you have offense up, don't worry about it. Click on tables tab where it says show table as opposed to like show query or something.
Where's that? I'm so sorry.
So
show table.
Right, yep. So do you have this? So if you go add table.
Oh, got it.
And bring this up. So just either click and add or double click on each one of these to add it here. And so if you've got, if for some reason you've like this query.
Got it. Now I have, I got them all.
Okay. So this query,
I'm
going to select that query to turn it yellow, and I'm going to hit my delete key. It's going to delete it off of there. Okay. So here, now this is where we have the same kind of look that we have in that little sheet that I just showed you. And I'm going to kind of lay mine out like it did on that sheet. And again, if you see that you've got these little table representations are a little short, just hover over that bottom edge, get that two-way pointing arrow and drag it down so you can see all of these fields. And then once we've got these, we're just gonna relate them together. And again, so the games, each one of the games is gonna be on the one side of a one-to-many relationship because we can have each individual person can have stats for the game, right? So we're gonna say game number is gonna be 1. We're gonna come over here and bring it to game number. And again, we're just gonna create that referential integrity, create. And then we're gonna do that same thing between our stats and our players, only this time the player number can have multiple stats, but the stats can't necessarily have multiple players in that way. And so we're gonna go ahead and say player number, bring it over to player number, let go, and then enforce referential integrity, create. And then so then we've got our players number from our players table on the one-to-many side, on the one side of the one-to-many relationship to stats, and then our game number from our games table on the one side of a one-to-many relationship with that stats. And again, so the stats is this, so the stats table, if we go ahead and close this and save it, if we go ahead and come over to these ones, now you can see we've got these sub-data sheets. Before we didn't, but now we've got these sub-data sheets. And the only one that won't have it, the sub-data sheet, is going to be the stats one, because the stats was always on that many side of those relationships. And so we can have many, there's many stats per game, and there's many stats per player, but a player can only have one set of stats per game. And again, it's like, thinking about it, it's totally crystal clear to me, but like saying it out loud, it's like, okay, that sounds a little confusing, but again, if there's something that you're not totally getting, just ask me the question and we'll work through it. All right, so then we can go ahead, we've got that one created. We can go ahead and close those ones out. And then again, if you are struggling to understand a certain part of it, go ahead and do some of those exercises that I included. If you think, okay, I think I got this. And again, all we've done so far is looked at the way relationships are built, and then how the tables are built, and then how changing data can affect one table versus the other once those relationships are created. And so again, we did some complicated stuff, but hopefully it was in a simple enough way that you're kind of comfortable with it. But again, if for some reason you're not and you don't feel comfortable asking a question, by all means, send me an email or a text or a phone call or something, and we'll work through it. All right, so does anybody have any questions about it? Other than that, we have like 5 minutes left. I can let you, get out a couple minutes early.
I'm good, Shane. Thank you
Okay,
again.
yes, thank you.
It's a lot of work, but I'm going to get this darn thing.
Yes. All
But
right.
thank you.
Yep,
We'll
thank
see
you.
you tomorrow for
Fine.
PowerPoint.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you, Shane. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right.
Save changes.
Yep, you're all good too?
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks,
Cool.
Shane. Bye-bye.
Yep, you're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, so I will stop the recording and stop sharing, and then I will see you all tomorrow.
Okay.
Hopefully. All right. Have a good afternoon.